Hello and welcome to How Shell is Accelerating Innovation and Embracing the Energy Transition. I'm Howard Geffen, General Manager of the AWS Energy Industry Business Unit, and I'll be joined by Dan Jevons, Vice President of Computational Sciences and Digital Innovation. The energy transition is real and it's underway. Over the last decade, there have been billions of dollars invested in new and low carbon energies, and it's accelerating. In just 2021, about $647 billion is going to be invested. That's 44% of investments across the energy value chain. And 70% of all new energy generation is going to come from renewable sources. So it's happening, it's real, and there is money across the entire value chain and capital infrastructure going into this. The whole world is engaged in this once-in-a-generational transformation. But it's a balancing act. Transition will happen over the next several decades. It won't happen all at once. It is a transition. And analysts predict that by 2050, we're going to need twice as much energy as we have today. So 50% will come from renewables, but the other 50% will come from traditional sources of energy. And that means that innovation is the key. And accelerating that innovation is underway. New fuels and carbon alternatives across transportation and manufacturing are being invested in and are taking hold. Hydrogen is a good example, so is SAF, carbon capture, and carbon trading and carbon offset transparency. This opportunity brings with it unique challenges. Convergence of oil and gas, renewables, and electrification of everything means that there is an increasingly competitive landscape. And as new sources of energy come into the grid, whether it be from solar, wind, EVs being charged at home, rooftops having solar, the grid is becoming distributed. And with that comes a lot of complexity. And so there is an innovation gap. Over 50% of the technology that is going to drive low carbon technologies hasn't even been invented today or is at the proof of concept stage. So in order to make this happen, it's going to take the entire value chain. It's going to take every company, every partner, every startup to be committed and investment of capital. Amazon has embraced this transition. We created the Climate Pledge in 2019, where we've committed to being carbon neutral zero by 2040. We've established the Climate Pledge Fund, which is a $2 billion fund to invest in energy across the value chain, and a $100 million Right Now fund to invest in nature-based offsets. Amazon buys more renewable energy than any other corporation in the world, and we've set a target to power all of our operations by 100% renewable energy by 2025. And we're on track to reach that target. And finally, Amazon invests in sustainability initiatives across its entire manufacturing and shipping supply chains. The AWS Energy Business Unit was formed to drive digital transformation and to help our customers, our partners, and startups with this transformation and to accelerate the energy transition. Shell and the amazing work they are doing is a great example of this. They're demonstrating leadership in the energy transition through their Powering Progress initiative. I'm super excited now to bring Dan Jevons on stage and take you through how Shell is accelerating the innovation and embracing the energy transition. Over to you, Dan.
Well, hello, everybody, and thank you so much, Howard, for the very kind introduction. It's great to be with you here, and it's great to be part of reInvent. I'm absolutely delighted to talk about our strategy at Shell, a strategy we call Powering Progress, and also to talk a little bit about what really matters, which is around driving energy transition in order to tackle climate change. Let me start by talking a little bit about the theme of energy transition, which is something which is really shaping everything that we're doing at Shell right now. If you look at the world around us, there's a recognition that we have to move faster than ever before to solve the challenges of energy transition. The energy sector needs to change at an unprecedented speed. And to do that at Shell, we've tried to invest in a strategy that's going to allow us to help to accelerate those changes. We recognize that around 50% of the technologies that we believe are going to be needed in order to drive energy transition are still under development. And that was something that was recognized in a recent IEA report. But it's also important to recognize that digital technology, which of course is one of the things that I'm focused on, can play a major role in helping to accelerate energy transition. A recent report commissioned by PwC estimated that around 4% of global CO2 emissions could be reduced through the better application of digital technology. I personally believe that's very conservative, but even if that's true, you're talking about the combined emissions of Australia, Japan, and Canada being abated through digital technologies. And I think that's really exciting. And as a result, we've put digital technology right at the heart of what we want to do in Shell to power progress. And I think as the energy system becomes more complex, the role of digital technology becomes fundamental. So let me unpack that powering progress strategy for you a bit. And let me start with net zero emissions. We believe that net zero emissions is absolutely fundamental, but also it's a very difficult challenge, recognizing that many of the energy systems today are heavily dependent on hydrocarbon-based fuels. And so the challenge for us is to deploy new technologies as quickly as we can to move towards that net zero goal. That's going to involve things like carbon capture and storage. It's also going to involve looking at lower carbon mechanisms to produce hydrocarbon-based fuels. And of course, it's going to involve shaping the energy system of the future to be more focused on very low carbon technologies. And we're focused on all of those things. But importantly, we believe that digital technology has a key role to play in all of that. Whether it's monitoring the embedding of carbon into the ground and ensuring that the carbon we put in the ground stays in the ground, or whether it's looking at mechanisms through which we can reduce the CO2 footprint of our existing operations, or whether it's looking at how we can design the next generation energy systems using high performance computing to ensure that we optimize them to minimize the carbon footprint, or whether it's looking at means through which we can manage a vastly more distributed and complex energy system in future using technologies like edge computing and AI. All of those things are going to be absolutely fundamental to driving towards that net zero goal. And I'll touch on many of those things a bit more as we go to this presentation. But it's not just about that net zero goal for us. I think the key point is we also have to continue to drive value for shareholders. And so that means running our business as effectively and efficiently as we possibly can. And again, focusing on doing that responsibly. And I think the challenge there is going to be also one that requires deep embedding of digital technology. And there are huge opportunities to leverage digital technology to just do things much more smartly across our business, even if that isn't directly related to net zero. And I'll talk about some of the value that we're already delivering across Shell from digital technology. But we also talk about other aspects of this energy transition in our Powering Progress strategy. The first is respecting nature. Respecting nature is a really important part because if all we do is move towards a low carbon energy system, we can potentially be very destructive also in the process of doing that to the natural environment that surrounds us. And so we're focused also on making sure we do that in a responsible way, whether that be considering the way in which we implement wind turbines, or whether that be monitoring bird populations, or whether that be looking at contamination in groundwater and developing new monitoring techniques like we have done with GWSDAT, which is now a standard open source framework that's broadly adopted for monitoring groundwater across both the US and the UK, and now broadening beyond that. And some great examples of just how that is becoming core to the way that we do things. And then the final point is also around powering lives. And I think this is also a really important point to unpack because, of course, we here rely every day on the energy system for the prosperity and the wealth that we all enjoy. And we have to recognize that in driving this energy transition, we also need to pay attention to people and the needs of those people to have energy, and the need for justice in the way in which we provide energy to those people. We're investing very heavily in that. We're investing in local communities, for example, in India, where we're partnering with startups like Kadibala Connect, which is a startup that helps waste pickers in India to identify plastic waste and then to get recompense for it in a distributed manner. Or also looking at ways in which we can provide solar power at scale in sub-Saharan Africa. So some great examples of things that we're already doing. And of course, there's much more to come. But we think this is a holistic and a cohesive approach to driving energy transition. And I hope that you noticed as I went through that at the heart of all of those things is digital technology. Indeed, I believe it's the underpinning of being successful in this strategy. So if you look at the value that we're already delivering from digital and AI, it's already very sizable. And that's important when it comes to driving shareholder returns. And we believe our performance is already industry leading. We delivered $2 billion in cost savings, production increases and margin increases in 2020. That was up from $1 billion in 2019, despite COVID. And that's a performance that we're extremely proud of. And it's important to emphasize that's value that we've already delivered from our digital transformation. And underpinning that, this slide just gives a sense of the level of transformation that is going on all across Shell. We've got over 1.9 trillion rows of data that we've aggregated into an integrated data lake based on Delta technology in order to allow us to optimize sensors right across the organization and aggregate data flowing in from edge compute. We've also got over 350 data scientists in the maths, computation, and data science skill pool who are developing next generation algorithms to support the energy transition. And importantly, beyond those 350 professionals, we also have 5,000 people who are technical professionals by and large in the business who are part of the Shell.ai network, who are involved in driving change and embedding AI into every part of our organization. We also have over 8,700 machine learning models running live in production, monitoring pieces of equipment right across our organization, identifying potential issues and root causes of failure events, which can cause significant reliability issues and downtime for many of our production facilities. And we're also seeing huge increase in things like virtual reality technology to help with over-the-shoulder coaching, particularly popular during COVID. And we've seen a huge increase in the volumes of robots and drones that are deployed all across our asset, generating new forms of data which we can use to drive further insight. And I hope this paints a picture for you of the sort of level of transformation that we're talking about in the energy system as we drive towards that lower carbon ambition. But what I wanted to do today was touch on just a couple of examples of where we see these transitions happening at scale. So as we talk about this digital transformation, I wanted to talk about two of our core businesses. I wanted to talk about our upstream business, which is providing the energy that we need today whilst funding the energy that we're going to need tomorrow. And also our renewables and energy solutions business, which is going to be core to shaping that energy system of the future that is fundamental to our net zero ambitions. Within our upstream business, we've been on a real digital and data journey. We've been seeking to transform our core data fabric within the organization and also to apply machine learning and AI to help to accelerate the transformation of that business. Let me talk first about what we're doing with our data fabric. A few years ago, we developed a solution which we call the Subsurface Data Universe, or SDU. We collaborated closely with AWS in order to build this solution, and we were developing it for deployment within Shell. But we saw a bigger opportunity, and we decided to open source the work that we'd done, which became what's now commonly known as OSDU, with the Open Group. And this is a collaboration which has now achieved over 200 members from across the energy sector. And we see countless innovations emerging on top of this common data foundation. The vision here is to try to drive the breakdown of silos within the energy business, and in particular within the subsurface. We recognize that historically we've had very siloed applications and very siloed data stores, which has prevented collaboration across organizational boundaries. And so by creating this common data fabric that sits across all of these different parts of our organization, we're able to drive better insights and better collaboration with different parts of the organization. And we're already seeing the benefits of that. For example, we're implementing OSDU within our Wells business, where we're using it to already drive integration between different parts of the Wells organization. And we expect that to extend over time, and we're looking forward to seeing that extend right across the subsurface domain. But it goes further than that. It's not just about creating a subsurface data fabric. It's also about using that data to transform the way in which we work. And this is where AI comes into play. We've been deploying AI for a very long time within our subsurface work processes, but in particular focusing on seismic data. For the uninitiated, seismic data is vast. It's often in the terabyte or petabyte scales, and it's used to provide insight around the subsurface during traditional work processes. We're looking to identify faults and features using traditional image processing technologies and applying them to a new form of data in seismic data. And we've seen some significant success in doing that. We're now able to improve seismic processes using deep learning, in particular techniques like generative adversarial networks and convolutional neural networks, by about 25%. And that's allowing us to obtain more competitive positions and new positions by accelerating our bidding processes. But it's not just about the subsurface. And I think what's really important is to recognize that AI that's developed in the subsurface domain is actually transferable into our new energies business. And this is the great thing about being in the data space, is the ability to take techniques that are developed in one place and apply them somewhere else. And we see those benefits emerging very, very quickly. We're now deploying AI all over Shell. And indeed, we developed the Shell.ai program with the stated intent of embedding AI technology in every part of Shell's business. And that's really important in terms of, firstly, driving efficiencies, reducing CO2 footprints within our organization, but also in terms of designing new solutions which are going to drive the energy system of tomorrow, and also in operating what is increasingly a power-centric energy system that we believe will emerge, where integrated power is going to become a core pillar of Shell's future business, and where distributed digital technology and edge-based processing is going to be absolutely fundamental. So let me give you some examples, firstly in our core operations. We're using digital technology and AI within our lubricants business, particularly in Europe, where we're optimizing route planning for our commercial vehicles, reducing CO2 emissions by up to 50%. We're also deploying AI to monitor machine idling through our MachineMax venture, which has shown the ability to reduce CO2 emissions by up to 16%. And we're also using similar technology on our LNG vessels, where we've shown that we can reduce CO2 footprints by around 7%. And finally, and most recently, we're deploying AI solutions into our LNG trains, where we've shown that we can save up to 130 kilotons of CO2 emissions through the deployment of AI technology, which is the equivalent to around 57,000 European vehicles. These are real, tangible examples of how AI and digital technology that's deployed today within Shell is driving transformation in our business and reducing our CO2 footprint. But it's not just about saving CO2, it's also about transforming the energy system. And so we're working very hard with partners to design the energy solutions of the future. For example, we're working with Dow Chemicals to develop new forms of chemical manufacture which can optimize the overall CO2 footprint of the process. We're also working with Dalmia Cement to figure out how we can use our systems modeling expertise to reduce the CO2 footprint of the cement creation process from end to end. All of this driven by computational science and digital technology. We're also looking at wind farm technology. We're using computational fluid dynamics and AI to look at the layout of our wind farms to maximize the power output and ensure that we get the absolute maximum from those assets. But it's not just about designing new energy systems. We're also deploying these solutions right now to our customers. For example, Shell has become, over the last few years, one of the largest providers of EV charging infrastructure globally. We have over 80,000 chargers in our network to date. We're expanding that rapidly. We provide access to over 250,000 chargers to our customers, and we've committed to achieving 500,000 chargers by 2025. Using AWS technology, we're developing solutions through our Greenlots and NewMotion ventures, which are shortly to be rebranded as Shell Recharge Solutions. And we're starting to see the benefits of that through the deployment of things like smart charging technology at scale, which allows us to move the load on the grid from the times at which there are significant hydrocarbons to the point at which the maximum renewables are available. And these sorts of optimization approaches are going to be really fundamental if we want to reduce the CO2 footprint of EVs. We also see the opportunity in the electric vehicle space to plan a network in a much, much smarter way. And once again, we're developing digital technology based on AWS, which allows us to use AI to optimize the placement of chargers globally within our network. And this is making us much more efficient in terms of the placement of chargers, but it's also helping our customers and helping the adoption of electric vehicles at scale by making it convenient for them to charge on their typical routes. But we're also talking about digital technology playing a critical role in dealing with a decentralized energy system. And what I mean by that is the fact that we recognize in Shell that increasingly communities and individuals are going to play a role in the energy system through the deployment of batteries, through the deployment of localized generation capacity in the form of solar panels or individual wind turbines. And we want to empower that because we recognize that localized development of energy is going to be fundamental to us achieving the goals of net zero. And so we've made a number of acquisitions in this space. We've acquired Sonnen, which is a battery manufacturer, which provides advanced battery technology along with digital solutions to support the transformation of the home ecosystem. And we are also working with virtualized power plants, which allow us to aggregate load from generation assets at small scale and turn them into grid scale capacity. Our ventures LimeJump and Nexter Kraftwerke, which are recently acquired, are already operating these sorts of capabilities in the UK and in Europe, respectively, once again, all enabled through AWS technology. And we're excited about the potential that this has to go beyond that and to become a common fabric which can provide virtualized power solutions globally as we expand our capabilities. So I hope that I've painted a picture of the transformation that's going on within our organization. But it would be remiss of me not to talk about perhaps the most important transformation that's happening. And that's a transformation in the way that we collaborate and also in our culture. We recognize that in order to be successful in transforming the energy system faster than we ever thought possible, collaboration is going to be key. We can't do it on our own. And that means changing the way we collaborate internally and changing the way that we collaborate externally. Let me start with internally. We've focused very hard on developing an ecosystem who can help us to accelerate the sort of digital transformation that I talked about. We have over 5,000 people who are part of the Shell.ai network who meet together every month to understand the potential implications that AI is having in their area of the business and also to accelerate energy transition. We're also running hackathons and boot camps to support those people and enable them in deploying solutions locally within their organization. But it goes further than that. Many of these people are technically proficient, but potentially don't have the skills that they need in these new and emerging digital technologies. And so we're offering reskilling programs with partners like Udacity to help those people with the right technical skill sets to be able to adapt to these digital technologies which can help us to accelerate energy transition. But it's not just about the internal picture either. It's also about collaborating externally. I talked about the importance of open source in approaches that we've shown through things like GWSDAT, developing technology for groundwater monitoring, but also through the OSDU ecosystem. But also we see the need to collaborate more effectively with our customers and with our partners. Partners like AWS who've helped us to develop some of the technology that I've talked about, but also with our customers. And that's going to be fundamental in order to get the buy-in to the energy sector of the future. But it's not just about customers and partners and major corporations. It's also about working closely with an ecosystem that's going to have to innovate like never before. I talked about that IEA report where we recognize that about 50% of the technology that we need is in development. And so in order to do that, in order to accelerate that sort of technology, we need to invest in the innovative startup ecosystem to try to build that acceleration of the sort of technologies we're going to need to transform the energy sector. We've committed significant amounts of investment to do just that. We're already moving a lot of our R&D spend towards the energy transition, over $1 billion a year. And beyond that, we've committed further to invest over $1.4 billion in the startup ecosystem, in developing the next generation of clean energy technology, which is going to be fundamental to energy transition. And we're doing that over the next 6 years. So these are significant investment numbers, significant commitments, which are designed to help us to accelerate energy transition by investing in technology, which we believe is going to be fundamental to being successful in transforming the energy system faster than ever before. So in summary, we're excited. We're optimistic. It's a big challenge. We recognize that transforming the energy system faster than we ever thought possible was something that is a challenge that we are rising to and that one that we want to face. We recognize that the energy system is something which we are all responsible for and something that we need to work together on in order to bring about the sorts of level of transformation that we need. And we see that digital technology is going to play an absolutely fundamental role in transforming this energy system and in shaping the sort of society that we all need to have, the net zero society of the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dan, for that fabulous presentation. And thank you, everyone, for attending the session. If you want to learn more, please visit the website shown on the screen. We hope you enjoyed it, and we look forward to seeing you at reInvent.